Supply crisis? What supply crisis? The Greater Toronto Area right now is at a 52-week high for new listings. This is when we first start tracking the first official week of September when new listings do come out. 50% more new listings than last year at this time. 20% less sales than last year at this time. So we're clearly heading into a buyer's market right now, unless there's some miracle with all these backed up offer dates on all the new listings we're getting, like, sometime this week and last week. And spoiler alert, I don't think that miracle's happening given the data I've seen and some of the results in the first week. So make sure you stay tuned to find out exactly what I mean with all of this right now. And if you are a seller in the current market right now, or are thinking of you need to sell your property right now, whether you're deleveraging or maybe you need to sell, you need to understand exactly what's going on in this overall market, and specifically your niche market or your micro market where your home or your investment property is. Because right now, only 1 in 4 homes are actually selling right now. 25% absorption rate. Meaning if you do not position your property correctly, maybe it's about pricing, staging, the way it's set up, maybe deal with tenants if it's an investment property, because that's very common right now. It could mean that your property will not sell this fall. This is very, very important. And it's exactly why potential clients have called us to figure out kind of what's the best plan of action for their personal situation, because everyone's situation is different. So if you do find yourself looking to sell a property, whether your investment property or your primary residence for whatever reason, you can book a call using the link that's right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com.
Simply click on the date and a time that works best for you. And then when you see the prompt, fill in your name, email, mobile phone number, and the question you have for me, and then we'll chat then.
Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. My name is Zen, and I run and operate a RE/MAX in the Greater Toronto Area, on top of making awesome educational real estate content just like this one for you. And if you do find any of these videos I've been putting out there for the last 6 or 7 years or so helpful in your real estate journey, whether buying your first property, selling your property, or just an investment property, be sure to help me smash the like button and subscribe to Prime Prop channel so that it gets the information out there about what's happening in the real estate market, especially this episode where we're kind of just talking about the direction of where the market is heading. And without further ado, let's get started. So, do we have a supply crisis right now? Well, looking at the current numbers, no, definitely not. The demand is like sucked out and we got a ton of new listings. And this is the fall market, yeah. So the tables right now are shifting, and I would say we're gonna be officially probably in a buyer's market very, very soon, maybe October, right? I purposely waited an extra few days before I put this video together for you because I want to see how some of these new listings that have an offer date, like a underpriced kind of present listing, and how they're going to pan out. And now that I do have some data, I'm going to share with you at the end of this video, and it's going to be interesting. Let's put it that way, right? So let's start with the most important data right now, which is new listings. I'll put a chart up over here. This is new listings on a weekly basis. We're following this because we want to see the direction of the market instead of month, right? Instead of a monthly data. And you can see over in this chart that we're at a 52-week high for new listings. We got about 4,300 last week. This is the second highest in this year. And the only other time that was this high was in June when we got that surprise rate hike, which had a bunch of new listings come on. So when you compare us to last year this time, we got 2,900 new listings with all the trigger rates and people weren't selling, right? Which represents now a 50% increase in new listings this year compared to last year. And I do not think we're done for September yet, right? Now, before you freak out, right, let me put a bit more context into all of this. It is a lot of new listings, but have a look at this chart. While we do have new listings, right, but we're only a little bit above what we were at in the last 2 years in terms of new listing, or it's just based on this chart and where our trajectory is for the end of the month. However, if I go a little bit further than the 3 years, you can see that in the 5-year chart that we're basically equivalent to the amount of new listings in 2019. Probably, not going to be as high as 2020 because that was like, a super anomaly with the pandemic, right? Totally outlier for like probably ever. So yes, we do have a lot of new listings relatively speaking compared to last year, But this isn't like an absurd amount of new listings where like the market's going to completely bottom if the demand keeps up. But the problem we have right now, and you can see right here, is demand is low. Sales are low, very, very low. You can see last week we got about 1,000 sales. Now this number should be going up this current week when this video goes out, but it's not a good showing to date so far, plus some of the data I'm going to show you a little bit later in this video. And you can see the same time last year we got 1,200 sales, or 20% more than what we got this year, right? So that's why it's bad. And you know what the reason is? Mortgage rates last year, while they were still increasing, was around 5% for a fixed. Right now, 6% plus. That's a big difference, right? The sentiment right now this year at this current time also feels much worse. So a lot of sellers want to sell, but there's a lot less buyers wanting to buy, which means that the amount of inventory is building up and the months of inventory is increasing. See what I mean? So if we use the 4,300 new listings or so and we got 1,000 sales, it means that we have a sales to new listing ratio of about 23%. Or in layman's term, 23% of listings are selling, 1 in 4, right? That's super low. It's a very strong buyer's market using that metric. Again, the month is not over yet, but the sales are very, very slow. And here's a chart showing you the months of inventory on a weekly basis for Toronto only. So keep in mind, Toronto proper only. So Steeles, the Scarborough side, and the 427, which gives us kind of like a very good indicator of like where the market dynamics are heading. You can see over here that the condo inventory in Toronto is at 5 right now, right? Basically, actually, it's like 1 in every 5 properties are selling on a weekly basis, right? And this is even higher than the pandemic. Your freehold properties, so your town, semis, and detaches are at 4. And that little yellow box I highlighted for you in the chart is kind of where the normal months of inventory is in Toronto, which is within the 2 to 3 range bound, which is normal for Toronto. And yes, Toronto generally skews towards a seller's market, right? Hence 2 to 3 months. And a buyer's market right now is in 6 months of inventory. So we are most definitely heading in that direction. And we're, pretty close to being in a buyer's territory, which we haven't been in a very long time, including the pandemic. So right now, there's a lot of condo listings that I am personally seeing that are tenanted, which tells me that the investors are deleveraging because they're selling with the tenant inside, which is not good for what your end price is going to sell for. And I would say the thought process on this is that if you have an investment property right now, like say a condo, you're probably going to be getting rid of that first before you sell any freehold property because you can't make as many freehold properties, right? And they're just worth more. Or like if you have multiple condos, you're probably getting rid of the one that performs the worst, maybe your least favorite tenant or whatever the reason is. But those are the new listings coming on the market. So the question is this a race for the exits for condo investors right now? Could be. This personally I see as an absolute disaster for the pre-construction investors, and I'll touch more on that next week. But if you bought a condo, call it before the pandemic, right, you're probably breaking even right now if you were to sell after professional fees and land transfer tax. If you bought it after, you're probably losing money because the condos after the pandemic was not as volatile as the freehold. They didn't go up as much, but they also didn't come down as much, right? And if you're wondering if, we're going to get bailed out, out of this like buyer's market, like what we saw at the end of 2022 in the fall market, where the condo inventory got as high as, I think it was like 5.4 on this chart. Nobody knows, because the reason we got bailed out is because a lot of people forget this one thing that happened in the spring market where we kind of had like a big frenzy for like a few months, was that fixed rates at that time, like this year in spring, dropped to 4% because we had the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, which brought all the bond market down, which brought the fixed rates down in Canada. Variable rate, even though the rates were going up, actually didn't move much, which is why we got so much more demand at the fixed rates of 4%. So can we see that happen? There's a small chance. I would say a non-zero chance, but I would say it's a super, super, super low probability, right? Because if you're hoping for that, you're essentially asking for something to break in the economy. And I would say we would probably have more problems if something was breaking in the economy right now, right? Which generally means recession, right? Now, here's another chart showing you the active listings, which means the amount of listings that are available to be bought right now in all of the Greater Toronto Area. You can see we are approaching 18,000 active listings in the GTA, which we haven't had since the pandemic surge in listings at the end of 2022. But again, that's kind of an outlier. And the reason why I bring up 18,000 as a number and why it's important and some context is this. Outside of April and May 2017, when they basically put in the speculation tax, like an extra 15% tax on closing if you aren't a Canadian citizen, the Greater Toronto Area has not had more than 18,000 active listings in more than a decade. The majority of the active listings, the over 18,000 in each month, came before the great financial crisis in 2008 when the rates were high. So this is me telling you, inventory is building up quite rapidly, which means months of inventory should be increasing because sales are not happening, which means prices are coming down. They're coming down. Now, let me show you how some of these offer presentations are doing in this current market. Keep in mind, properties are selling, but very few of them, and selectively, of course, like the good ones. And our team has been tracking these offer presentation dates to see kind of like what the sentiment is and how they're doing so that we have an idea of what's happening, right? And the data we've been tracking has been from basically September 4th, right? Kind of like after the Labor Day up until September 19th. Note, this data is only for Toronto in the 4 and 6. It's very, very difficult to track all of this in the GTA because there's a ton of listings. So in Toronto, as you can see over here, there are 1,600 freehold listings, give or take. And of those listings, we got 13 bully offers that were accepted, and about 25 of them had an offer date. And while most of them are still pending right now, because again, they're holding offers like after I post this video, we did get the results of some of them, right? 128 of them. We know the result of those. And you can see in this chart over here that 64% of them was successful, meaning they sold. And then the other 36% failed, meaning 2/3 of them are selling an offer presentation and a third are not. That's not bad, but we have more to come. So TBD. Not the best, but at least the ratios are positive and more than half of them are selling, which is the opposite in the condo space. Yeah. So we got about 2,400 new listings, which is significantly more than the freeholds. And we had 5 bully offers that are accepted, which random, but okay, yeah, sure, whatever, right? But the percentage of those holding offers for condos, it's much less than freeholds as a whole, right? And the ones that are holding offers, most of them are failing, right? It's the exact opposite. 38% of them are successful and the other 62% failed, right? That's more than half. This is what this is telling you. The condo market is very soft right now. And if I had to sum it up right now, I would say that the properties that show 9 out of 10 in great locations are selling, or the really, really well-priced ones. And not like new records, but they are selling. And everything else is kind of like piling up in the active listings and just building up more and more. So either you have one of the 4 properties that actually sell and you do everything in your power to make that thing sell, which includes being realistic with the price, which a lot of sellers do not want to hear, or the sellers let their property sit there and hope that somebody loves it enough to put an offer, which hope is not a strategy, okay? So that's currently the lay of the land right now. It'll be more concrete when the official numbers for September come out, in like 2 weeks or so. But like I said in the start of the video, I do not think there's a miracle coming to save the market. And we're very much not going to revert back to what it once was before around the pandemic time. For me right now, it feels like the market's in 2018, right? Very little demand. And honestly, it's not a bad thing, but unless like the realtor that you're talking to is licensed for more than 5 years, they would not understand this because all they would have known is a super strong seller's market because it was very soft at the end of 2017 and 2018. We're just reverting back to that time where the market's a little bit more balanced, a little bit less frenetic. You can actually put conditions on things, which, you know what, may not be a bad thing. I actually think it's pretty good. Anyways, I hope this gives you an idea of what's happening in your real estate journey. And if you do want to talk about your personal situation on how to navigate this craziness, for lack of a better term right now, because there's stuff pointing everywhere, you could book a call with me using the link that's on the screen right here. It's www.chatwithzen.com. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya! Now that I'm done watching this video, I think you should check out this video. And you know what? Why don't you check out this video too?